All right, Rob, now we're going to get to this week's Shore Four, the four big things we were talking about coming off this weekend's football. And we'll start with a pretty historic landmark victory for Marlboro. I think a lot of people thought, their bid for the playoffs is probably done. They got two hard games left here to end the season. I mean, if they're going to get in, they got to beat Manalapan, which they hadn't done since 1994. And then what happens?
Luke Rubin. Did you see that kick?
It kind of knuckleballed its way just over the goalpost. But hey, it doesn't. You don't get style points. Like he kicks the game-winning field goal in the final seconds, 17-14. I mean, talk about just a monster win. And not only that, what a character win for Marlboro. You had a huge injury to AJ Schwartz early in the year. You had Cassidy was banged up for a game or two, and he came back and played great on defense in this game. But I think their season in one game with, like, you'd have to say, Luke Rubin had the biggest kick by Marlboro in the 21st century.
I mean,
they haven't been in the state playoffs. They haven't been in the state playoffs since 1999, the days of Dan Klecko.
Yeah.
And 94 was the year they won their only state championship. So that was just a huge, huge victory for the Mustangs.
I love watching that video, and Coach Delgado's doing a great job losing his leader, a quarterback safety, and then coming here. Luke Rubin's kick just barely went over the goalpost. It's basically an extra point. And he told me he was contemplating, should I just run the ball at Matt Cassidy or should we kick it? And I think he made the right choice. But listen, it just barely made it. He got special teams overall player of the week, and the whole place went crazy. A great win for Marlboro, puts them in the state playoffs, and bumps Manalapan down a little bit in the seeds. But Marlboro, you got to root for them. I mean, they're a team that hasn't been there. They lost their leader, and now they make the state playoffs with that win. I give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I just think that they had three losses in a row, and after a great start, but the injuries were mounting, and I mean, this is a school that they've only been in the state playoffs two times in the history of their program, 94 and 99.
Yeah,
so this is a
great story,
landmark victory.
Great story, tough kids.
Again, just a great character win for them against a team that they had not beaten in. I mean, that's my 1994 was the fall after I graduated from high school. So that was a long time.
This tells me this though. When you lose a guy like AJ Schwartz, well, maybe they have some pretty good players on the team right now too. Not just Matt Cassidy. Got Ryan Mendez. Got a bunch of guys in the box right there. So there's going to be names that you're going to be hearing about when we talk about All-Star teams and the Stumpy Awards. So good.
Yeah, I mean, kick of the year right now. I know like you said, it wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, but as far as the most important one, it's tough to beat right now. I think of the Tennessee kicker who knuckleballed it over there against Alabama. Nobody cares that it wasn't that aesthetically beautiful of a kick. The place went berserk and tore the goalpost down because it was an incredible win.
That's what it's all about. And don't forget, they're also in the same district. So there's a lot of stuff right there. And then the second thing we want to talk about is fantastic finishes. You go first.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the game I was at Friday night, to me, was the most exciting game I've been at all year. Ocean pulls it out in overtime, 34-28. CJ Flanagan with the walk-off 6-yard touchdown run. The place goes berserk. His teammates swarm him. Just a great back-and-forth game with a lot of, big plays. Ocean had an 86-yard touchdown catch for Mateo Andrews, kind of bobbled it at midfield after, Tyler Douglas launched an absolute bomb. I mean, he showed how he's an FBS quarterback. He had a fade ball down the sideline to Andrews early in the game. Like, that looked like a throw you'd see on a Saturday in a big college game, or maybe even on a Sunday. So he was, as advertised. And I thought Middletown North, we think of them, they throw the ball, they have Sheehan. But no, they realized they had a big size advantage up front, and they pounded them with the run game, I think over 230 yards. So it was kind of the battle of the big play offense of Ocean against like the grinding running game of Middletown North.
Yeah.
Like you didn't necessarily envision it in that way, in the sense that like you figure these are two teams that like to strike down the field, and that it might be this big play answered by that big play, but Middletown North controlled a lot of the clock. They were really physical up front. It was impressive in that regard. But then it seemed like every time, Middletown North had a long drive and took a lot of the clock and seemed like they were going to kind of like take the wind out of them, Ocean would come back with some huge play. And in overtime, that huge play was, the whole game, Ocean had not been able to get any kind of turnovers. They finally got one. Defensive lineman Shane Garrett, they throw a screen, gets tipped up in the air, he dives on the Middletown North's overtime possession. That was absolutely huge. And again, they overcame a career game. Nino Morgan-Acker on Middletown North had 180 yards rushing. That was his career high.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought there were great performances on both sides of the ball. But Ocean is undefeated. They're absolutely on the ropes.
You needed that.
But they find a way. So that was really, and talking to the game after the game, talking to Tyler Douglas, talking to Coach Donnie Klein, they were almost like, we needed this in a way. This was like a playoff game to us.
100%.
We've been blowing teams out in our division. We've had all these lopsided wins. This was a massive, serious test from a good team, and they took us to the absolute brink. But we found out what we're made of with, an undefeated record on the line. So I think that was a big benefit. I mean, that's a really tough loss for North because they did play so hard. They played well. And I was really impressed. Obviously, Morgan-Acker was great. But James Barneo, on both sides of the ball, he had a touchdown rushing. He had 3 or 4 sacks on defense. He was great. So that to me, though, was definitely the excitement of – and Middletown North opened the third quarter with an onside kick.
Really?
Kind of shocked Ocean, recovered that. And then there was wild plays like Tyler Douglas on one play probably would have had the run of the year in the short conference where he eluded like 4 guys and then ran for 40 yards. It gets called back from a penalty. The next play, he unloads an 86-yard bomb to Mateo Andrews. So it was one of those games where you couldn't even look away or you were going to miss something great. It was a lot of fun. It felt like, all right, this is almost like the playoffs are here. Like, this is what we're hoping for. Yeah. And then there was another one down in with an Ocean County team, Pinelands, again, continuing their surprising season under Coach John Tierney.
Yeah, nobody was tweeting about the game. Nobody. So I called up my buddy Steve Fentz because his kid's on the team. So I'm talking to him. It's getting down to 3 minutes right now. He's saying doesn't look good. 2nd and 4. They got the ball. Holy smokes! I can't believe it! Oh my God, we scored! I'm like, what? I hear the place going crazy. Then he slowed it down and told me Mikey Hall picked up a fumble and went 27 yards for a touchdown, and they didn't look back. 12-7. Big win for John Tierney. They're 4-3. They lost 3 games by 10 games. It gives them an outside chance to make the state playoffs, winning on the road like that, but. Joe Adam.
The fact that Pinelands is in the conversation for a state playoff berth at this point in the season, historically with their program, that's not normal. They're clearly, and I feel like their defense this year has really been the backbone of that team.
Joey Adelizi. Joey, Mr. Adelizi.
I worked with
son.
the legend himself, Joe's dad, at the Asbury Park Press early in my career.
He does
one of my
a great
favorite
job.
Guys. So yeah, it's great to see. It was funny. We called him Little Joe when he was a tiny kid growing up, but you look at him now. No, he's not little.
I'm proud of him. Joe's doing a great job defensively. They're rallying around the ball, but to make a scoop and score like that at the end of the game, again, it puts your defensive, practice drills, and then you do it in a game is awesome. John Tierney's 4-3.
And honestly, that to me is just a huge confidence builder for Pinelands because how many excruciating games in the fourth quarter did they find themselves on the other end of plays like that? So to turn the tide and have them be the one make the game clinching play, that's a huge confidence boost for them.
Big win, big win in Wildcat. Yeah, it was. Then there were some big hype games.
Yeah, you were at the Southern. I was thinking when I saw that final score, I said, you know what? Who's definitely? I mean, obviously we talk about the big name teams that have a lot to play for, and their coaches have done a great job. But what about the job that Chuck Donahue has done this year with almost an all new team?
I talked to Chuck. Because I didn't realize they changed their offense again. They were in spread. They were in 20 personnel, 21 personnel, 11. They weren't running that triple option, but whatever. He's got a great defensive coaching staff led by Matt Abato. Great job. Now Howell, they got their big receivers. They spread it out. They're great from the 2020. They just weren't scoring. 5 turnovers in the game. Southern had 2 big plays on Waggle to Max DiPietro at tight end, 2 big touchdowns. Andy Valletta, Andy Valletta, what a great leader he is out there. I mean, the stats might not show it, but he is such a true leader offensively, defensively, the quarterback and safety. Just, it was a big win for Southern. It was a huge
I
win.
mean, you think about this was, I know Chuck would never say rebuilding because he's built a good program there.
Yeah.
But they had almost an entirely 100% new starting lineup. And like you said, now they had an offense, and now they have a different offense. And so the fact that they're right in the hunt and like getting wins like that this late in the season is a real testament to that. And honestly, their big thing is their defense creates a crazy amount of turnovers. Like when they beat Long Branch, what did they get? 3 or 4 interceptions and a fumble in that game?
Yeah.
So that defense, not only do they get stops, they take the ball away.
Well, Chuck Donahue's got a luxury. He could play around, like when he was changing the offense at the beginning of the year, the triple, he knew that his defense was going to be sound, keep him in the games as best as possible. And then when he changed it, give him a lot of credit. He changed in the middle of the season to what he felt comfortable through the last couple of years, and it's working. He's doing a great job, Chuck Donahue. Great job.
Absolutely. Yeah,
great job.
I think they're one of the underdog surprise teams of the year, just given how much they lost. And they lost the school's all-time leading rusher. Like they graduated some big-time players. So, yeah, it's a real testament to what he's built there, that it just keeps rolling even after losing that many talent.
I went to another game, and they do listen to our show because they had popcorn waiting for me at Manasquan.
Of course. We know, yeah. When you go to Manasquan, you have to get the popcorn.
But do I need to eat 4 of them?
No.
I mean,
you got to take your Lipitor like in the car on the way home.
I had 4 of them, and they were as good as the ones in the past. They were great job by the parents group with their popcorn. It was senior day. Manasquan has all their dudes back. They're now on a 3-game winning streak. Patton's looking good. Jameer Howard. They got Matty O'Donnell over there. They got some dudes, and Detlinger is back. They're rolling right now, Manasquan. Shore's a good football team for Group 1, but there was a big difference between Manasquan and Shore that game. There really was.
Yeah, and I think, again, Manasquan is building back to full power here.
Yeah.
With Jameer Howard and Brett Patton in there making plays again. They raced out early in that game and never looked back. And like you said, Shore's a division champ. I mean, they're a quality program. I know it's a little bit of a smaller school, but that's still a really quality win for Manasquan. And I think, again, the feeling of, we're getting back on track. I mean, Julian Whitehall also 10 tackles, fumble recovery. Like, they're starting to look like Manasquan, after guys hurt and out and tough losses and this and that. Right around playoff time, they're starting to become Manasquan again. So I wouldn't want to be the team that has to deal with them in the first round of the postseason.
Coach Price is doing a great job. He really is. I love what he does offensively, where he's got Justin Sella, who was the Monmouth County assistant coach of the week. Offensively, what they do with their RPOs. But Coach Price is doing a great job with this team, getting them back after an 0-3 start. We knew they were banged up, all right? But he's got them going in the right direction. He's got them battle-tested. And all their losses were against quality teams, too. But they want to play them again, those guys. Manasquan looks really good. Credit to Coach Price and the staff there. They're looking really good. Big game in Ocean County featured a public school, private school. Donovan Catholic versus Jackson. Donovan Catholic won 23-0. Jackson held tough. Jackson held tough. Jackson's a tough football team. They really are. 23-0 versus Donovan Catholic. What I get out of it is Jackson's going to be a tough draw in the state playoffs. Donovan Catholic is where they want to be. They're getting better each week. They're young, and they're going to be scary next year. But they're going to be in that non-public A bracket, and they're probably going to play. I hope they get a 7 seed, so they play a 10, so they can get a win before they play
Don't
Bosco.
Make them have to deal with Bosco or Bergen right away.
No, I'd like to see that happen.
I think that was a good game for Jackson in the sense that, obviously they're not happy they lost by 20 plus, but that's the third shutout of the Donovan Catholic defense. To me, is right there with RBC as the best in the whole Shore Conference.
Led by Dante. Dante Veneri's having a very quiet year, but he's tops in the state with tackles, had 17. He was our player of the week for overall. Quietly, he's and Zaire Day.
I think because they have these explosive skill players that
Yeah.
are really good and sometimes draw some of the attention. But to me, the backbone of that team is their defense, and that defense all year, even in the RBC game, they held them down. So to me but I think if you're Jackson, your feeling is we're probably not going to see a team better than that or a defense better than that in the state playoffs.
And then,
that's a good test for them as far as going into the postseason.
yeah.
Obviously you struggled, but again, you saw a level that you might not really see until the way deeper rounds of the playoffs if you're able to get them.
But I was impressed with Jackson keeping that score. 23-0 is a nice wide gap, but it wasn't running clock. They didn't back down, and I like Jackson's fight. I really do. I do. And then Middletown South Mattawan, it was 41-10. Mattawan comes in. I mean, they're the division champs. They can win it all next week. Playing Middletown South, who's rolling. There was a big score discrepancy. Middletown South is tough. I mean, they're just tough.
I think South, their running game is just so dialed in right now. I mean,
physical.
Between the last 2 weeks, Rumson in this game, I think they have almost 800 yards rushing combined in those 2 games.
Yeah.
And it's not really one guy. That's the other thing. You can't just focus and say, well, if we stop Summy, we'll win. Because Swakeel will hurt you, Gallagher will hurt you, and they have other guys. So it's really just their offensive line that has been just bullying people the last couple of weeks. And for Mattawan, that's just a learning experience. You're a young team. This is a higher level that okay, we're good enough to win our division here with a lot of the smaller programs and other. That's the next level that as we come back next year with a lot of our team, that's the level we have to aspire to reach, to where we can compete with a team like that, an American division team on that level.
Colin Gallagher's having a great season defensively.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, his numbers
are. I feel like when you talk about Defensive Player of the Year candidates in the Shore, his name is right in that conversation.
Luke Waffle on the edge, a sophomore. Look out for him. He's a good one. Getting overshadowed a little bit by Colin Gallagher, but he's quietly having a tremendous season at linebacker. Gallagher, he really is.
They call Penn State linebacker U. Middletown South is like our little local version of that. Every year, whoever the number 1 linebacker is on South is probably a first-team All-Shore candidate. It's just like clockwork with them. It's crazy with that position how they just produce one star after another. Such a great lineage before Gallagher. You could name, the Nick Macalusos and the guys like that were just incredible all those years. It's like they had one every other year, as a star of their team.
All right, and our last one, let's talk milestones. And this was, you do play John Madden football. This was John Madden football numbers. Tell us the stats that he put up.
Yeah, I mean, Connor Dietz, first of all, every Brick Memorial game is just so crazy score-wise. 53-33 over Central. But he set a Brick Memorial school record with 385 yards rushing.
Yeah.
And a school record with 7 touchdowns. And they've had some great backs go through that school and quarterbacks. So to own the single game records for both of those is really impressive. And on top of that, he threw for 180 yards. So he had 565 yards of total offense. And just to throw it in there, he had 2 interceptions on defense and kicked 4 extra points.
If you're playing that, there's a glitch in the game. There's a glitch.
That's like a cheat code. That's like I went up to go get a drink, and I come back, and all of a sudden your player is unstoppable. Like,
90s.
I think that what an accomplishment for him, and that's like an Ashante Worthy game. Remember back in the Freehold heyday, where high 5, 600 crazy short conference record level yards in a game. Dietz has had an amazing season.
Yeah.
He's the engine that drives that team. I mean, all their games are wild. Their defense has struggled all year, so the offense, it's almost like the perfect storm for putting up crazy numbers because you have to keep coming back on the field when the other team is scoring.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was definitely on a night he'll never forget.
It was 35-33 at half, so it was within the range of the game that he did it. It wasn't running up to score. It was
no, that's my point. And I think that was a lot of those Freehold teams some years with Ashante where they were giving up some points, so he had to keep going back out there and leading drives and scoring and making plays just to win the game.
Yeah,
it wasn't like we're up by 50 and we're leaving him in. It's like they need him to keep scoring or they're going to lose. So yeah, that was just an all-time performance for Dietz. Etch his name into the record books.
I would hate covering that game with all the tweets. My fingers would be like this, right?
That was a game like back in the day with the press. Like you just doing the box score would take like 45 minutes. Forget writing the story.